Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast, episode number 58. I'm back, a little sunburned, very rested, and with a camera full of photos from a 12-night Caribbean cruise. And all I can say is, wow. As I mentioned in the last Genealogy Gems newsletter, I spent a couple of weeks this January of 2009 out on the high seas teaching genealogy, which was totally fun. And I thought it was terrific that one of the major cruise lines was interested in providing genealogy classes to their guests. We certainly had a great response from the folks on the ship, and actually the trip was 12 nights, so it was 6 days at port, and then we had basically 6 days at sea. And Bill and I flew into New Jersey. Now, we're out in California, so it wasn't too cold over here, but we flew out to New Jersey, landed trying to beat a snowstorm, and lots of ice and snow. But we got in, and the next morning we boarded the ship. It was really fun to be able to bring my husband to work with me. So I taught on the days at sea, and so we had 2 days going down from New Jersey to the Caribbean, and we did beginning genealogy and introduction to newspapers, using newspapers for genealogy research. And then we had to stop, of course, and enjoy all the amazing port of calls that we went to. We went to San Juan, Puerto Rico, visited the old fort there, which was great. St. Thomas, which looks like a Caribbean postcard. I mean, it's everything that you imagine the Caribbean's going to look like. And St. Martin, beautiful beaches there. And Dominica, which is actually a new port for many of the cruise ships. It's a fairly undeveloped island and has a beautiful rainforest in the center of it. So that really wasn't a beach day. That was, get a van and drive into the interior and go to the Emerald Pool and take lots of photographs and just take in such a natural, beautiful state and something you don't see every day. And then we finished off with Barbados, which was fantastic because we actually hired a driver, went over to a beach, and with another couple, we went snorkeling. And that is so fun. It was really neat because it was kind of historic and adventurous because they had 3 shipwreck sites marked off in the water with buoys. And so he would take you out on this glass-bottom boat and kind of park you. And then you get in the water with all your gear, and we snorkeled to a shipwreck from 1917. And, of course, it's only, 20 feet down at the most. And, of course, it sticks up from there. So that's where the fish congregate. And so he arms you with a big wad of bread, and we snorkeled around and held the bread out, and the fish just came up out of the shipwreck and, of course, ate right out of our hands, which was amazing. And we swam over to another shipwreck, which was from the World War II era. And then finally to a more modern shipwreck, not too far away from there. I don't know if they hauled them all together in the same location or if this was just a bad spot. But that was really neat. And I'm not a real daredevil when it comes to the water, but it was shallow enough that I felt courageous enough to put on my mask. And I finally did dive down and touch the shipwreck so I could say that I did it. But Barbados was gorgeous. And then, of course, we finished off with Antigua, which, again, a gorgeous beach. But even better was the historic Nelson's Dockyard that they have there on Antigua. And that's where Lord Nelson was. But, of course, today it's filled with modern sailboats and yachts and all that. But actually, this Nelson's Dockyard area, which is right there on the harbor, is kind of known as the Williamsburg of the Caribbean. And they have a Nelson's Dockyard museum there and lots of rooms devoted to Lord Nelson. And then there were some other outbuildings, and it was just very historic looking. You kind of felt like you were walking back in time in the Caribbean. So we visited that, and of course there were so many amazing locations for taking photographs. So my camera is full, but I did post about 20 or so pictures on Facebook. So if you've joined me over on Facebook, you can take a look at those and see some of the photographs from our gorgeous trip. And then we got back on the boat and we had 3 days cruising back up to New Jersey. We had 3 classes covering immigration, as well as my Genealogy Gems craft projects, which is really more about creating projects that inspire people to get interested in your family history so that they will have an interest and it will then be perpetuated down into future generations. And finally, we wrapped up with, of course, Google, a goldmine of genealogy gems. Lots of eyes opening during that class. I think we had some beginners, but we had some experienced people as well in genealogy. And I think using iGoogle was something very new to them. And there was a lot of excitement about being able to go home and create a custom genealogy dashboard. And that's what iGoogle is all about. I mean, it brings in genealogy blogs and podcasts and search engines and everything, and it customizes it right there. And not only can you create that dashboard in iGoogle, but you can create layers of dashboards using the tab feature. So you could literally have a page dedicated to the research of each one of your major surnames. So lots of excitement there to go home and try and use that. And of course, that's something that I actually cover with the Genealogy Gems premium subscription membership. I have an entire series. I think we have about 9 videos in the premium site right now covering step by step how to really get into iGoogle and maximize it for genealogy research. So that was a lot of fun to see the enthusiasm on the part of all the guests there that were on the ship. So I want to say a special hello and welcome to our new listeners from the Caribbean cruise. Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad to have you here listening to the show and interacting with us. Hope to hear from you guys all again in the near future. So in addition to teaching the classes, I was free to enjoy the ship, which was like an entire city. It was amazing. And I've been on one cruise that was about a 3-night cruise. Oh my gosh, we took the kids about 7 years ago. And this blew that away. I mean, that looked like a little tugboat compared to what we were on. And literally, it's 14 stories high, and the main deck, deck 5, just goes from one end of the ship to the other. And it's literally like walking down a city street, filled with cafes and pubs and stores, and it was unbelievable. So needless to say, we never ran out of anything to do, and I'm convinced when I got off the ship, I still had not seen everything that was on the ship. I'm pretty darn sure, because we were locating restaurants and areas and game rooms and things that on the last day of the cruise that I had no idea was even there. So needless to say, I was thrilled to have the opportunity to do that and to see some beautiful places. And we had some wonderful friends we met at our dining table. We had 2 other couples there, one from Pennsylvania, one from England, and they were fantastic. They were hysterical. It kept us in stitches all the time. The couple from England, we actually ended up touring all of the islands with. So what a fantastic way to meet other people from around the world and make really good lasting friendships. They made it a lot of fun. And of course, there were shows every night after dinner. So it was kind of a walk back in time, kind of some retro feel. We saw Marty Allen. Now get this. Now you probably remember Marty Allen from, oh my gosh, he was on Ed Sullivan and Johnny Carson and Mike Douglas and all those shows all the time. And he's a comedian. The man is like, I think that he said he was 87 years old. And he was still out there with the wacky, frizzy black hair. And his wife joined him. She's beautiful and talented. And he got up there and he did a fantastic routine. He had the whole place in absolute stitches. So that was really fun. It was, I remember being a kid and getting home from school and watching Merv Griffin after school, his talk show, and seeing Marty Allen come on, and he was hysterical. And the nice thing was he still does a clean show. And that was really nice. I think everybody appreciated that we could laugh for a solid hour and it was basically clean. And then also the happenings. Now, do you remember the song, I'll See You in September? Oh my gosh. I mean, of course, once they sang that song, I could not get it out of my head. But the happenings are still out there performing. They're amazingly talented. I mean, my gosh, they put on a show that just rocked the house and tore it down. So I had never seen them in person. I mean, I've only heard the records, and even then they were a little bit before my time. But really fun to see such a top-notch vocal group as the Happenings. So, needless to say, I got very relaxed and very pampered and very spoiled on the cruise, and now I've got to get back to work and clean my own house. Before I left, I tried to make sure that I had Genealogy Gems podcast episode 57 set up to publish. And we had some problems with that, so I apologize that it took a little bit of time for that to finally go live. But it was set up to be published while we were at sea. So there were a few problems with that, but it is now up and running. You can download episode 57. And also we had Family History Genealogy Made Easy, my other podcast. Episode number 9, for some reason, had a little glitch in the file. That's been corrected as soon as I got home. I republished it. And it looks like it's fully there. I think it was there, but it was like a piece of it was there. So thank you to those of you who caught that and sent me an email and let me know, because I was able to get that corrected as soon as we walked in the door. So I've been catching up since I got home. And of course, there's lots going on, as always, in the world of genealogy. So my first stop was to go check out Diane Haddad's Family Tree Magazine Genealogy Insider blog to get up to speed on what was going on while I was gone. And she did a really interesting series, blog series, about her recent look inside Ancestry.com. While I was on the islands, a group of genealogy bloggers were at Ancestry's headquarters, getting a first-hand look and a tour of the company. And Diane wrote in her blog, she says, clearly the day was designed to communicate a specific impression, one of a personable, open company. And despite Ancestry.com's reputation in some circles as a big bad corporate monster, I gotta say the Ancestry.com people we met seemed to genuinely care about preserving historical records and making it easier for customers to research family history. I think Ancestry has gotten large enough now that it was the right timing to sort of open the doors and get back in touch with their users. And it sounds like that's what the day was all about. Diane gives a great rundown in her 5-part blog series about what she learned during her visit. And in her first post, she talks about what's new and next at Ancestry.com. And it sounds like there's a lot more Civil War records that are going to come online in conjunction with Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday, which is just around the corner. She mentions here consumer education about how to do genealogy beyond using what's on Ancestry.com. And I'm happy to say that I'll be included in an upcoming Ancestry magazine issue about online education. And in particular, my new podcast, Family History Genealogy Made Easy, which is really sort of a genealogy audio course, walking you step by step through the research process. I love doing that show because we can devote a whole episode or even multiple episodes to the various areas of the research process and really go in depth. So keep an eye out for that upcoming, I think it's going to be an April issue of Ancestry's magazine. And I think they're going to be featuring more about consumer education and including our podcast. And she also mentions here DNA test price cuts, which I also wrote about on the Genealogy Gems news blog, so you can learn more about that. And content-wise, Ancestry.com is increasing efforts to digitize and index records in county and state archives, which means more scanning of paper documents rather than microfilm. So that's pretty interesting. In her second blog article, which is about the digitization and indexing process, she calls it From Paper or Film to the Web. She covers how more and more often Ancestry.com will digitize paper records on site at repositories with digital images sent to their headquarters for processing. She also confirms that many records are indexed in China and Uganda, which I didn't realize. She writes that indexers receive months of training in English and whatever language the records are in, and they're asked to key exactly what they see, even when a word is misspelled. And then U.S. employees do quality spot checking and occasionally send back batches of records for re-indexing. In Diane's third article in the series, it's called Online Searching. It's Complicated. Diane writes that the search engine's algorithm will soon be adjusted to subtract points when a name or a date in a record doesn't match what you typed in. Before, this additional step in the search process would have taken too long and made the server start smoking. But now that the engineers have almost figured it out, your search results should appear in a more logical order and the best matches higher up on the list. I think it helps to know that they recognize some of the search issues that we deal with as users and to hear that they are working on improving them. So that's really good. You can learn more about that in her third article. Now, in article number 4, it's called Inside Ancestry.com's Top Secret Data Center. Diane gives the inside scoop about how the regular disk backups that they do at Ancestry are transferred to tape, and they're whisked weekly to a Granite Mountain disaster-proof storage vault near the one where Family Search keeps its master microfilms. And she gives some insider details on what it costs to run an operation like Ancestry. She writes, Ancestry.com's monthly hosting costs run $300,000 for the space and $112,000 for power and the rest for bandwidth. That's part of what you're paying for in your subscription. A larger chunk of your subscription fee goes to adding new content and upgrading current content. So pretty interesting kind of behind the scenes. If you ever wondered what it costs to run a site like that and how they deal with the backup, pretty interesting insider look at that. And finally, in article number 5, Diane reveals the secret identity of the mysterious Ancestry Genealogy Blogger. Or does she? You'll have to check out her article number 5 in the series to find out for yourself. In fact, if you're an Ancestry user or are considering a subscription, I highly recommend Diane's blog series at the Genealogy Insider. You can find her by going to familytreemagazine.com, and I'll have a link in the show notes to take you directly to the series. Now let's see what else is happening. Oh, I heard from another Lisa. She's also known on Facebook as Smallest Leaf, who wanted you all to know that the latest edition of the Carnival of Irish Heritage and Culture has been published over at Small Leaved Shamrock. And that's at small-leavedshamrock.blogspot.com. If you're not familiar with these online carnivals, they're a lot of fun. Genealogy bloggers from all over will post a special blog article on the theme that they announce for the carnival. And this theme is, of course, being Irish heritage and culture. And then the carnival organizer, who is Lisa at Smallest Leaf, in this case, publishes a carnival blog article linking to everyone who submitted articles. And it's kind of a wonderful smorgasbord of genealogy. The next edition of the Carnival of Irish Heritage and Culture will be a St. Patrick's Day virtual parade online. So anyone who would like to participate is welcome, whether or not you have Irish roots. So for more information on how to participate or to check out the latest carnival, head over to irishheritagecarnival.blogspot.com. And speaking of blogs, I managed to do some blogging, even though I've been out of town these last couple of weeks. Some of my most recent blog postings over at the Genealogy Gems news blog. Well, first off, I wrapped up my 10 genealogy strategies for the new year on January 21st, 2009. And I also posted about the new American version of the television show, Who Do You Think You Are? They have finally announced when the show is going to start. Set your recorders to Monday nights at 8 p.m. on NBC starting April 20th, 2009. In each episode, they research the family tree of a celebrity, and the first celebrities they're going to be doing are Lisa Kudrow from Friends, who's also producing the series, and they're going to do Sarah Jessica Parker from Sex and the City, and movie actress Susan Sarandon. You can get to the Genealogy Gems news blog by going to my website at genealogygems.tv and just clicking the blog button in the left menu column. And there are some milestones going on these days as well. The Library of Congress just crossed the 25,000 mark for books digitized. 25,000 digitized books. A good article appears about that on the Voice of America website, and I'm going to have a link for you to that article in the show notes. The Internet Archive, which is a San Francisco-based nonprofit group, is doing all the scanning, and their aim is to preserve cultural artifacts such as musical recordings and web pages, which are now cultural artifacts, as well as books, and make them available online. The books are being scanned in a large, utilitarian-looking room in the Library of Congress, a block from the U.S. Capitol building in Washington. And the article does give some interesting insight into just how all that digitization is done. And here at Genealogy Gems, we will be celebrating a milestone in the near future as well. March 2nd, 2009 will mark the second birthday of Genealogy Gems podcast. So we'll have to think of some sort of virtual birthday party we could have to celebrate. I'll have to think about that. Now, I've got several new podcast episodes for you over at Family History, Genealogy Made Easy podcast. On January 16th, 2009, we started in on online family trees. The more I explore them, the more I become convinced that online family trees, posting your family tree online, is one of the most powerful research tools, and I really predict that in the next few years, they're going to become absolutely a necessity for any family historian. So I start off on episode 12 by giving you a comprehensive overview of online family trees. And then we go straight to the source and do an in-depth interview with Kenny Freestone, who is the senior project manager at Ancestry.com. And his primary responsibility is their online family tree tool. In episode 13, we continue exploring our tree options with Scott Husky of Photoloom.com. Now, they offer an incredible online visual approach to trees and research that centers around your own personal family photos. Then I talked to Sasha Masick over at Gene Tree, who spices up their family tree tool with a DNA testing component. And finally, I'm very excited about episode 14. You got to tune in to hear about how to go from having one name and a birth year to 3 generations of family in 1 hour or less. It's absolutely possible, and I'll show you how in this episode. Now, here's a hint. We're going to be tapping into all of the research techniques that we've covered so far in Family History Genealogy Made Easy. Then, as we finish up with online family trees, I thought it was important to go over the techniques for following up on all those great connections that you can make by posting your family tree online. So we'll get started at episode 14 talking about how to locate telephone numbers online for those people that you want to contact, the prep work that you need to do before you start to dial, breaking the ice and conducting those interviews with people who are either relatives of yours or other researchers researching your family lines. And then we'll finish up on the upcoming episode 15, which is going to be published on February 6th of 2009, with what we as the interviewer should be doing during the call, what to do if nobody answers, and we'll also cover those must-ask questions, and then, of course, how to wrap up the call and do your follow-up work. Now, moving on to some of the major genealogy sites out there, there are definitely some new goodies coming online that you're going to want to know about. The folks over at 1911census.co.uk officially launched their website this month, and they have added many of the counties that were unavailable during beta testing, including Lancashire, Essex, Kent, Yorkshire, and a couple of others. So you can now access those British census records from 1911. And they're going to continue to scan the remainder of the census, and we'll get those remaining counties online as soon as possible. They kind of expect the site to be pretty busy at first now that they've launched it, and so they've taken a number of steps to make sure that as many people as possible can get their searches completed. First, they've deliberately restricted some of the research functions on the site, meaning that the search is not as flexible as it's going to be later on. And secondly, they are only allowing users to download original pages rather than being able to view them directly on the website. So keep that in mind. Now, once they get past the initial crunch, they'll unlock those features and switch on the image viewers, and I'll let you know when I get the word when they've done all that. If the site gets really busy, just be aware that they will also probably restrict the number of new people entering the site to allow the people who are already using the site to complete their searches rather than making it impossibly slow for everybody. So that seems fair enough. So just keep that in mind. And from World Vital Records, they've recently added 20 newspaper databases from Mexico and Canada, ranging from 1833 to 1994. Kind of exciting to see some of these databases coming online for both Mexico and Canada. We haven't had enough in the past. I'll have a list of those for you in the show notes, or you can visit worldvitalrecords.com. Keep in mind that World Vital Records makes their new databases available for free for the first 10 days after they're added, so it's worth checking back to the website regularly to see what's new. Well, my house may not be clean yet since I got back, but I think we're pretty caught up on our housekeeping when it comes to the family history world. So our next step is the mailbox. In the mailbox, I have this email from Raleigh in Australia, who writes, as a retired professional photographer, I listened with great interest to episode 57. And he's talking about my interview with Sally Jacobs, the practical archivist, about photo preservation. He says, I must point out that it is not a good idea to store photos in a linen closet, as was suggested by your guest. The reason is because most people use mothballs, which are very destructive to photos and negatives. Well, thank you for writing, Raleigh. You know, it's interesting that you would say that most people use mothballs because I actually don't know of anyone anymore who really uses them. I think they went greatly out of favor here in the United States because of concerns that they can be toxic to children and to pets who might accidentally ingest them. And I'm sure that that's what Sally Jacobs was thinking when she made the suggestion. But you make a good point. If you by chance still use mothballs in your linen closet, and it sounds like perhaps folks in Australia still do, then this would be an important thing to keep in mind. And as Raleigh suggests, you probably wouldn't want to store your valuable photos or papers in a closet with mothballs. So thanks for pointing that out. And here's an email from Maria, who writes, help. I interviewed my husband's 87-year-old grandmother, and she gives me dates and names in her past with no problem, including the dates of her 3 marriages. The problem I'm having is with the date of her first marriage. She said it was in 1939, Alabama. My mother-in-law was born in 1940. My research found a marriage license certificate dated 1942. I know it is definitely hers, as her name is not common. And this is 3 years after she said she got married. If I tell her children about this find, they may tell me not to ask Grandma about this. Let sleeping dogs lie. I would like to question Grandma about the date issue, but I need some assistance in finding the right way to talk to her about this. I don't want to come off as not believing the date that she originally told me, yet if this is something that she intended to keep a secret, I don't want to embarrass her. She lives several hours away, and we don't see her except for a couple of times a year. What would your advice be on how to find out the truth about the date of her first marriage? I've always thought that my mother-in-law didn't look like her brother born in 1943, but I've never told anybody about that. I'd like to ask my mother-in-law to see her birth certificate. She knows I'm doing genealogy and recently got married again, so her birth certificate should be handy. How can I ask Grandma about this date issue of her first marriage? What questions would you ask an 87-year-old without feeling like you were being nosy? Well, Maria, this is a situation that could happen to any of us along the way in our research. There's probably no surefire way to approach your situation, but I think I have some ideas for you. Since you've already had one conversation with Grandma, I would really recommend lining up as many facts as you can before you talk to her again. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of sound like you questioning her word. So first, consider the time and the place. If she said it was 1939, and we're talking about a time following years of the Depression in the South, in Alabama, they may have, married as in a common law marriage, but not actually applied for a marriage license until 1942. I mean, honestly, licenses cost money. Secondly, I would recommend that you inquire at the county level as to whether there is a marriage license application on file. Many people overlook this document, but it often exists and it may shed more light on the situation. And when you ask for a license at the county level, they won't automatically search for it. So you have to ask specifically for the marriage license application. If you'd rather not ask your mother-in-law for her birth certificate, consider ordering a copy yourself. I would certainly do that if at all possible before talking with Grandma again. It may answer the question, but at minimum, it's going to arm you with more facts before you attempt another conversation. And if Grandpa is not listed on Mom's birth certificate, and perhaps no father will be listed if your suspicions are correct, then I would go back to the county and ask them to look for a marriage license and an application for the years of 1935 to 1939 for Grandma only. It's possible she may have actually married somebody else before Grandpa. And remember, if there is a discrepancy, it may not be what you think. Mom being born in 1939 doesn't necessarily mean that she was illegitimate. She may actually be the daughter of Grandma's sister or some other relative. And for whatever reason, Mom was given to Grandma and she was raised as her own. Now, I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm just saying that the story may actually be quite different than you first imagine. And finally, when you've assembled your facts and you're ready to go back to Grandma, I would recommend approaching it in a way that says, I'm confused, and it would mean a lot to me if you could help straighten me out with this. Let her know that in an effort to locate the appropriate sources that you found some discrepancies, and assure her that the real story would only deepen your sense of feeling close to her and nothing more. You're not trying to catch her at anything. And reassure her, most importantly, that her privacy will be protected and respected. Let her know that just because you're doing family research doesn't mean you're going to publish everything, that you just want to understand the true story so that you can be accurate and also respectful of her wishes. So I hope you'll let us know what you find out. Let us know the approach that you take if you've incorporated some of these ideas. And we look forward to hearing back from you, Maria. Thanks for writing. All right. Well, we're going to take a break, but coming up next is an old idea for a new family history Valentine. And that's coming up right after this. Looking for a way to get even more genealogy gems that will power boost your research, inspire your creativity, and give you the motivation you need to tackle that brick wall? Become a Genealogy Gems premium member and start reaping the benefits right away. And by entering the coupon code SAVE20, you can get 20% off the annual membership. You'll get 2 extra members-only episodes every month packed with great information you can use right away, an instructional video series walking you through the best internet tools and family history projects step by step. And membership is not only educational, it's fun. You can synergize with other listeners in the message forum and even try your hand at the genealogy-themed crossword puzzles. If you enjoy the Genealogy Gems podcast, then you're going to love being a Genealogy Gems premium member. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what your fellow Genealogy Gems podcast listeners have to say.
Thank you very much for your wonderful podcast. It's helped me out immensely.
Keep up the good work. Thanks again for everything that you do and for bringing things into a new perspective.
I'm calling because I wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed episode number 4. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. I learned so much from your podcast and look forward to each new episode.
To become a premium member and start reaping the benefits right away, go to www.genealogygems.tv and click the Join Today button. Be sure and type in the special coupon code SAVE20, that's SAVE20, and you'll get 20% off the annual membership. Don't drive through your research with the handbrake on. Go full throttle by being a Genealogy Gems premium member. Hi there, this is Lisa Cooke of Family History Genealogy Made Easy. Have you ever wondered who your ancestors were? Finding your family history has never been easier or more rewarding. Get the tools that will deliver success along with inspiring stories of family discovery on my weekly show, Family History Genealogy Made Easy, on personallifemedia.com.
Profile America, Tuesday, February 3rd. Today is the anniversary of a major event in modern U.S. history, one that is not marked by celebration. It was on this date in 1913 that the 16th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, authorizing Congress to levy taxes on income. Its passage was controversial and capped a long-running battle. In its first 2 years, the tax was modest, providing only a small part of the government's total revenue. But World War I moved income taxes to the center of federal finances. In a recent year, individuals paid more than $2.5 trillion in income taxes, while corporations paid $396 billion. You can find these and more facts about America from the U.S. Census Bureau online at census.gov.
You heard the saying, everything old is new again, right? Well, this gem takes an old idea way back from Genealogy Gems podcast episode 20 and makes it new again. Back then, the gem was called Christmas in July, and I showed you how to take a store-bought candy bar and create a custom homemade Christmas label that would evoke family history memories. The candy bar made a great stocking stuffer. Well, I'm up for chocolate any time of year, and Valentine's Day is a perfect time, I think, to take a new twist on that idea. I'll have a link to the show notes for episode 20, which will give you the instructions that you're going to need, including a printable publishing template that you can use to create your own customized candy bar labels. Take another listen to the episode, and I'll walk you through the process step by step. But this time, we have a new theme to inspire us, the theme of Valentine's Day and love. I'm guessing that there's a romantic couple or two in your family tree, and perhaps your candy bar could pay tribute to one of them or to a few couples on the label that you're going to create for it. Or, like me, you may have some vintage Valentine cards that were once given to your ancestors that you could scan and incorporate into the label, because Valentines prior to 1923 are now in the public domain, so you could certainly use those. And you could give these candy bars celebrating the love of the past to your family of today. Your kids and your spouses, your grandkids, you get the idea. Think how surprised and thrilled even an elderly aunt or uncle would be to be remembered on Valentine's Day with a small little package in the mail containing a family history candy bar. And if you're feeling a little more grand than a simple candy bar, consider buying a heart-shaped box of candy, tracing the lid, and creating a label that could cover the entire lid with a custom message of ancestral love. Just be sure to use heavyweight printer paper, or photo paper would even be even better, and you could attach it with a light coat of rubber cement, or you could use double-sided tape. If the box is just a little bit bigger than a piece of printer paper that could run through your printer, you could put the digital file that you create on your computer of the label onto a flash drive, and you could take it to your local copy store to print out in the correct size. So here again is your chance to share some of your family's heritage with your family today. You could spark their interest in the family's history while showing them that you care with a Sweet Memories candy bar or a Valentine box.
Profile America, Thursday, February 5th. Today, with the principal's approval, of course, many students around the U.S. will be able to do the unthinkable, chew bubblegum in school. The unusual freedom will cost 50 cents. The idea of Bubblegum Day is to earn money for the school's favorite charity. Bubblegum was invented by accident in 1928 by Walter Deemer, who worked for the Fleer Chewing Gum Company. He made an experimental batch that was less sticky than regular gum and also stretched more easily. It was an immediate hit. That first batch of bubblegum was pink because that was the only food color available to Deemer. Americans buy 500 million pounds of all forms of chewing gum each year, worth more than $2.5 billion. Profile America is in its 12th year as a public service of the U.S. Census Bureau.
Gosh, I had no idea that I was born on Bubblegum Day. I didn't even know there was a Bubblegum Day. That is very cool. Well, maybe that's why I always loved to chew bubblegum. Gosh, remember when you'd get it stuck in your hair and your mom would have to use peanut butter to try to get it out? Or maybe that was just me. I don't know. When I was a kid, my friends and I would walk the mile or two down the road to the short stop and later the 7-Eleven with our 75 cents in hand to buy a dime candy bar, which of course was a Three Musketeers bar, and those huge sweet tarts. Remember those? You could lick them until your tongue started to bleed. Or again, maybe that was just me. I don't know. And if you had some pennies left, you'd throw in some pieces of bazooka bubblegum, right? Because they were the cheapest thing in the store. Those were the days. Well, we've got to wrap up this episode. But speaking again of candy, I think I have candy on the brain today. If you do create some sweet memory candy bars this Valentine's Day, be sure and snap a photo and email it to me at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. I just love seeing what you guys come up with, so be sure and do that. And a quick reminder about the Family History Expo that is going to be held in St. George, Utah. It's just around the corner on Friday, February 27th and Saturday, February 28th. I'll be there teaching 4 classes as well as conducting lots of new video interviews for the Family History Expo's TV channel on YouTube. And of course, I hope you'll be sure and stop by the Genealogy Gems booth in the exhibit hall and say hi. These conferences are so much fun. There's nothing like getting in there and mingling with other researchers and hearing from top genealogy experts in person and seeing firsthand all the new innovations in family history research. It's a blast, and I hope to see you there. If you'd like more information or you'd like to register for the 2-day conference, you can go directly to familyhistoryexpos.com. Okay, you guys, thanks for tuning in. I will see you over at the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast to talk about online family trees. And we're putting together a great show for you over at the Family Tree Magazine podcast. So keep your eye out for that around the middle of February. So until then, thanks so much for listening, friend. And I'll talk to you soon.